When you walk in, your main power switch is the yellow indication right here. It says start sound system. This will start a sequence. It takes about 30 seconds or so to power on and off, and you'll see that these delay through a cycle. So I'll turn it off right now. You'll watch them turn off one by one. What that does is it just delays the time of all the equipment powering on and off over time, so it's not a surge from the wall, and also you don't hear any pops and noises when the system is powered on or off. I'm going to go ahead and power it back on again. You'll see that the mixer starts a boot up screen, goes through a little dance of lights. You'll start to hear fans and things turning on. This initial splash screen that this comes up with is a help start menu. I'm going to leave that active for now. You can always defeat it at a later date. Once it's booted up, you will see the mixer inputs, and then you'll see the lights remain on. So kind of the lay of the land here is the touch screen and this wheel where it says touch and turn kind of work together. So anything you touch on the screen will become pink, and if you grab the wheel, you can fine tune it. You can also adjust it with your finger on the screen, but I kind of find that it's nice to be able to touch and then turn like it describes. It makes it a little more precise. But that should allow you to get around and navigate the things on the screen very easily. The next thing I'm going to show you are sort of the understanding of the basics of the inputs and output stages and how they are set up. There's what's called fader banks. Each fader bank is the inputs, the groups, and outputs, and then there's what's called a custom. I'm going to recommend that you always just make sure that the custom is lit. That's where we labeled it here, main mix bank, and that'll always show this set of arrangement of the first 16 inputs and outputs. So how this works is the first 4 are green, and these are your wireless channels. There's the 2 clip-ons and 2 handhelds. The next 4 are your wired microphone channels, and these are labeled by the wall that they're located on. So there's the Garden, St. Joseph, Chapel, and then the Seton wall, which is like the westish wall. I'm not sure what you're using it for, but the Garden is obviously where you're setting up Mass typically. St. Joseph is the wall that's in between this rack room and the hall, and then the Chapel is the chapel wall, where you're going to be also using for plugging it in for the projector use, and also for when you want to have a sound system from the church. When I swipe to the left, you'll see the next page, which is the 4 stereo inputs that we had talked about on the walls, and those are also labeled Garden, St. Joe, Chapel, and Seton. These are now pink. Those pink channels mean those are the stereo inputs, and that's where you would plug in the RCA or little mini plug from your laptop or iPod, etc. There's a floor jack, and then there's the outputs. The outputs are labeled in red. In the custom bank, I can have inputs and outputs on this page, and so that this way I have everything kind of laid out in a way that's easily understood. So you've got all your different inputs and your outputs labeled right here. Everything mixes to the mix, and then after the mix, so you want to leave this at 0. After the mix, those outputs are then routed to each zone. So there's one for the hall or Seton Hall, and this is for the lobby entrance area. So if you want to have one area louder or quieter than the other, or turn it on and off, you would do that from those faders there on the right. And those are the last 3 channels of the 16 of the first these 2 here. If you go past this point, you're going to start seeing aux pages and other things that aren't really useful to you. So if you get lost in there, I would just make sure you scroll to the left. You can kind of see a little bar down here as I scroll. It moves along, kind of tell you where you're at. The other thing you can do is you can touch up here and go by different areas and look at the zones, but I find it's easiest to just swipe back and forth to get to each section of channels. And it's the last 2, or the left 2, that you're going to be using the most.